Hello, ladies and gentlemen. In today's video, I want to talk about a little more information we've recently gotten surrounding the paid quote-unquote buffs. This has been something that we've known for a while now, however, not the specifics, simply that it exists and it should be coming sometime in this version. However, the leakers have finally given us a little more to actually go off of, and it's actually some pretty big information that'll help a lot of you gain a perspective on what these buffs are going to be, right? So, let's get into it. To start us off, we have an explanation from DK2, who is leaking a majority of the information here, that these paid buffs are a tier above Nova Flares. What this means is they actually add animations, they change the gameplay of the character. So they do much more than most Nova Flares do, such as just increasing numbers and maybe changing a trace to be more powerful than a previous one. This is completely changing the way the character plays and even increasing their animation quality, right? So let's get into the one with the most words here, which isn't all too surprising: Acheron's. According to DK2, Acheron's buff should be that once per turn, when an enemy that has a stack of Crimson Knot is attacked, Acheron will launch a Fua against all enemies, dealing lightning damage in 4 successive slashes. Each of these follow-up attacks increase a counter by 1. Once this count reaches 3, Acheron immediately gains access to an additional ultimate while preserving her previous slash stream progress. Now, this is subject to change, as this is what's currently available, and they could definitely change it before the official release. However, this does give you a good perspective and understanding on what these buffs will actually do for these characters. Once again, they are not just number changes slash increases like all previous Nova Flares, but actually changing the way the character plays. In this case, with Acheron actually being a Fua character to some extent, you'd obviously imagine that her best in slot team would be with Ashvale and as well as Emblade, right? So, moving on, we then have the other two. Because Acheron isn't the only one getting a paid buff, it's been known for quite a while now that it's Acheron, Dill, and Jingyuan. So, for Dill's, it is mentioned that at the start of battle, Dill gets a temporary buff, which makes his damage dealt become 200% of the original damage. When Dill consumes enough skill points through his enhanced BA, he automatically launches an additional attack against all enemies. He also gains a 4th level to his enhanced basic attack, now allowing him to use up to 4 skill points on one turn instead of his old cap of 3. Once again, subject to change, as we don't know exactly when these paid Nova Flares are specifically coming out, and it is still in development. Next, we have Jingyuan's. Jingyuan's is that when Lightning Lord's accumulated attack count reaches 10 or more, its next action will be enhanced, so increased in strength, increasing its number of hits to 16 from its original 10. So those are the current tidbits of information that we have surrounding these paid buffs, quote unquote, for these 3 specific characters. Now, let's get into what a lot of people are worried about, which is the fact that they are called paid buffs. We still don't know for complete sure, neither do the leakers, if paid means actual or Neric shards, or maybe a special currency similar to golden tokens. We simply do not know. However, at least one thing that should help alleviate some of the worry for a lot of people out there, and it did for me as well, is that it is mentioned here that according to DK2, there will be one free selection between the three characters that people can choose from. So this means you can choose one of either Acheron's buff, Jingyuan's, or Dill's, and you won't actually have to technically pay anything. You'll just be able to select it and you'll get it completely free. This is much, much better news than this not existing, because if it is a type of real currency paid buff, obviously a lot of people would be angry about that. They still would, even with this being a thing. However, this helps alleviate that a lot more, because now it's kind of similar to the golden token shop. Realistically, the only way to obtain golden tokens without spending events, right? Or without spending money and all that stuff. The only way you can get it is through getting copies of an E6 5-star. And you can't get it after just one. You need 2 copies of an E6 5-star that you already own in order to get even 1 golden token. However, the thing with the golden token shop is every time it comes around, you usually get 1 free, even if you're a free-to-play player, meaning even if you're not a whale, you can still take advantage of that shop. So hopefully this is the same way they're kind of treating these paid buffs, where they might be paid, but there's 1 free selection every time one of these comes around, making it a lot better for a lot of the player base. For example, a majority of people, I'd imagine, would actually be able to benefit more from the free selector, because of the fact that Jingyuan and Dill are just so old at this point that mainly only veterans have them. And of the 3 characters here, the most popular and also the quote-unquote newest is Acheron, meaning a majority of people are more likely to have Acheron in comparison to the other 2 on their accounts if they are newer players, meaning they just choose Acheron and they get the full benefit from this since they don't have Jingyuan or Dill on their accounts. This is the situation I'm in, right? I have a lot of different HSR accounts because I don't want to spend thousands of dollars to play on all these characters that this game consistently releases. So I spread them on the accounts instead. However, even among all of these accounts, I don't have a Jingyuan and I don't have a Dill. The only one I have on one of my accounts, being my Firefly one, is Acheron. So this means I can just choose Acheron's paid buff, get it completely free. My Acheron is now way more meta than she used to be, and I didn't have to pay anything for it. And keep in mind, these are much better than Nova Flares, so it feels really, really nice, because you're actually getting new animations, you're getting new gameplay, and a different way of actually playing the character. It's much, much higher tier than just normal Nova Flares, which increase numbers and don't really do anything else. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. What do you think about the information we have the paid buffs so far? In my opinion, it is a W. Once again, I can see people complaining about the fact that it is paid buffs, and I shouldn't ignore that there are accounts that exist that do own Dill, do own Jingyuan, do own Acheron all at once, and it's disappointing to them that unlike normal Nova Flares, which are completely free, they may have to only be able to choose one from these paid buffs. I completely get that, but I still think it's at least a net positive, and it's not at all a negative. If there wasn't this free selector for one of them, I'd be much, much more harsh, but there being a free selector for one of them changes my mind quite a bit, because you can at least upgrade one of these DPSs, which in this game usually equates to 1 extra team that you can basically build upon on your account now for endgame content, which is just absolutely fucking huge, because once again, I can't stop mentioning it enough, right? These are on a tier above normal Nova Flares. Normal Nova Flares are usually meant to make characters usually a little weaker than the current peak of character strength slash team strength, these Nova Flares are meant to completely revive these characters and genuinely make them meta and competitive with the current top tier rosters. And these paid buffs are probably going to release sometime around when Mono Elation gets fully finished with Nihilux and Pearl, for example, meaning they have that much more value to them. But let me know what you guys think once again. Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. Peace out.